Lord Jackson, the Imperial Arcturian Armada is ready for battle.
Good.
At your command, we will unleash it against the Terran and sweep them from the air.
Then let there be no delay. Send forth my Armada.
I'm a bit surprised that no one guessed today's game correctly. Most of the guesses were for Leisure Suit Larry and Corridor 7. Well, I don't own Leisure Suit Larry yet, and Lazy Game Reviewer is actually going to be doing Corridor 7 later this month. And I don't own it either. So instead, today's Ancient DOS game will be Stellar 7, a very simplistic 3D tank shooter along the same lines as Activision's Battlezone, but with a bit more going on. The 7 in the title doesn't mean that 6 games came before this one, but actually refers to the number of solar systems you're going to fight in, as well as the number of different power-ups you can acquire. And while the game may look very intimidating, it's actually incredibly simple once you know how to play. Difficult, but simple. It even has a number of little tidbits going for it that make it just that much more involved, but before we get too specific, let's take a look at the game stats. Stellar 7 was developed and released by Dynamics in 1990. It's a one-player 3D first-person shooter featuring support for multiple sound and video modes. The best video mode is its MCGA 320x200-256 color mode, though it does actually have support for EGA, Tandy, and even CGA graphics. The sound mode is auto-detected when you start the game, with its Sound Blaster mode offering the best sound quality, not to mention it's kind of necessary for the CD audio music in the CD version of the game. I am told though that the MT32 sound support is superior on actual hardware. As for its release date, it's still commercial, but finding a copy is really easy, and you shouldn't have to pay more than $3 or $4 for one. And if you want the box and manuals and everything, it shouldn't cost more than $10. Now before I get into the story, I just want to quickly mention that this game actually started life way back in 1983 for the Apple II and Commodore 64 computers. The original Stellar 7 was created by Damon Sly, one of the co-founders of Dynamics back when it was still named the Software Entertainment Company. The original game had wireframe graphics and was very much more in tune with the original Battlezone, because, well, it was directly competing against it. The story itself in this game is pretty basic. The evil overlord Gerdraxon of the Arcturus Empire wants to conquer Earth. He sends forth an attack armada, and it's up to you to stop him using one of the most advanced fighting machines ever developed, dubbed the Raven. Yeah, that's it for the story again. Well, let's be honest, a lot of these old games didn't really need a story, just action and gameplay. Though that said, there are a few cutscenes as you progress to help set the tone and eventually show you who you're really up against. So let's talk gameplay. You control your Raven tank from a first-person view and have the ability to turn side to side, move forward and backwards, and fire your main energy cannon. There's no strafing, and there's no adjusting the height of your shots, so the challenge in combat is being able to shoot things without getting shot yourself. Since there's no lead indicator, you'll probably spend your first half hour or so just learning how to lead the targets properly, especially the super fast flying enemies. At the left side of your instrument panel are your 7 power-ups. These include Invisocloaks, which make you invisible, Eel Shields, which let you damage targets by ramming them, Jump Thrusters, which sends you soaring into the air for a moment, RC Bombs, which are basically landmines you can drop, Cat's Eye Scanners, which lets you see cloaked enemies, Super Cannons, which give you a serious boost in firepower, and MP Thrusters, which give you a serious boost of speed. There's 2 ways you can go about using your power-ups, but first, I gotta bring up the keyboard just to visually demonstrate this. Normally you use the arrow keys to move and spacebar to fire. Well, in terms of power-ups, the most common method of activating them, which is also the method I don't recommend using, is to use the hotkeys, I, E, J, B, C, S, and T. As you can see, they're scattered all over the keyboard, so you'd have to look down every time you want to use one. Instead, I recommend using Tab to select a power-up and Enter to activate it, which still looks kinda clunky because we're still using the arrow keys. The numeric keypad can also be used for movement, and it has that handy little enter key in the corner. Suddenly, these controls look very nice. We don't have to remap anything. Oh, you can also use Z to zoom your field of view, but I find it doesn't really have much practical use. In the middle of your instrument display is your radar and shield gauge. The radar shows you nearby targets, while the shield gauge shows you how near you are to being obliterated. It's important to note that your shields do not recharge between missions, though there are special fuel bays you'll come across twice during the game which will give you a single recharge of your shields and Invisocloaks. If you do get killed, you can continue the game if you wish, but the continues you get depend on the difficulty setting. In fact, that's pretty much all the difficulty setting affects, is how many power-ups you start with and how many continues you get. On easy you get 2 continues, on standard you get 1, and on hard you don't get any. The top of the screen shows you which solar system you're currently fighting within, and I think it'd be a good idea to discuss each one of them because each of the 7 solar systems presents you with new dangers and a unique guardian to face. So let's start things off with right where you begin, in the Sol system. The fighting here is actually pretty tame, so it gives you a good chance to get used to the controls, and it shouldn't take you much effort to win the battles here. You'll probably find out though pretty quickly that the area you're in is fairly small and wraps around, and the enemies are randomly generated, but only up to a certain point. So more enemies won't appear until you shoot them down. The Guardian boss here is a giant walking robot, and the way to win is simply hold down your reverse thrust and fire keys. Easy stuff. The next system you head to is Antares, and things will kick up a notch immediately. The moment you start this level, you'll have 2 blue seekers after you, which will explode on impact, so shoot them down ASAP. You also have to be concerned with the green prowler tanks, because they can actually hurt you if you touch them. The Guardian is a giant walking spider. The strategy here is to stay at medium range and pelt it with shots while making sure to drive around any webs it drops and shoot down any mini spiders it sends out. The next system is Rigel. Your first fuel bay will be found here, but you generally don't want to go for it until you're low on shields. Also keep in mind it restocks your Invisocloaks, but doesn't work if you have an Invisocloak engaged. The Guardian here is a giant flying scorpion of all things. When it comes down to attack, it will drop off 2 little robots to come and damage you, and if it's close enough, it will even try to ram you and will do significant damage if it succeeds. So just stay at long range, predict where it's going to come down, and let loose some shots before it does. This Guardian takes a while to beat, so be patient. The next system is Deneb and has some tougher opponents as well as destructible obstacles which show up on your radar as enemies, and they need to be destroyed for the Guardian to come down. The Guardian itself is a giant walker that is faster than you, takes a lot of hits, and will crush you nearly instantly if it gets too close. You will need to use power-ups to beat this thing, either Invisocloak so that you can get out of its way when it closes in, or Super Cannon to give you the firepower to take it out with a steady stream of shots. The next system is Sirius. Like Antares, you'll have a group of Seekers to deal with at the start and more as the level progresses, so keep an eye out for them. There's also lots of flying enemies, and they're even harder to deal with than the original ones in Sol. The Guardian here isn't actually that difficult. Either get around its backside and pelt it, or failing that, just stay out of range of its weapons, like just a little bit out of range, and it'll actually still be in range of yours, so just blast away. The next system is Regulus. You'll find another fuel bay here, and this is also where you'll be introduced to the Stalker tanks, which can cloak themselves, though they'll still appear on your radar even when cloaked. The Guardian is similar to the one in Antares, so just use similar tactics to defeat it. The final system is Arcturus, where after some intense fighting you'll face off against Gerdraxon himself, piloting his Annihilator tank. The trick to winning the final battle is to shoot a little, turn away, shoot a little, turn away, repeat as necessary. Try to stay away from the Annihilator too, since it can destroy you very quickly just by touching you. There's a few neat little things about this game too. The first is the way you get more power-ups. Rather than it being random, you get power-ups by defeating the same kind of enemy 3 times in a row. Though not every kind of enemy will drop power-ups, and the power-ups are based on the specific kind of enemy you defeat. The flying enemies, for instance, will drop jump thrusters, while the prowlers, which can damage you on contact, drop eel shields so that you can damage things on contact. However, since the enemies themselves are randomly generated, it takes a bit of strategy in deciding which enemies to destroy to ensure that you can defeat 3 of the same kind in a row. Another neat aspect is that there's hidden warp links in the Sol and Deneb systems that will let you skip ahead to the Deneb and Arcturus systems respectively. To access these, you must shoot the correct obstacle about 16 or so times, after which it will turn into a blue warp link as opposed to the green ones you normally get after defeating a Guardian. It's kind of like the warp zones in Super Mario Bros., where they let you get further in the game with minimal effort, but at the same time, if you're not ready for the challenge of the later levels, you're not going to live very long. As far as strategy goes, the lack of strafing will probably throw off a lot of people who try to play this game, but considering how few shots it takes to defeat any enemies, turn and shoot tactics work very well. Basically what you do is if an enemy is trying to chase you down, simply hold down the accelerator and turn constantly in one direction. Then keep your reflexes ready to shoot the instant that enemy flies in from the side of the screen and gets centered in your sights. It takes practice, but is very effective since the enemies in this game have no idea how to lead their shots. Essentially, so long as you keep moving, you'll be far safer than if you stay still, but you also have to be ready for some curious tactics the enemies will take. Quite often, a moving enemy will just stop suddenly, forcing you to readjust your movement and aiming. Many of the enemies also have firing patterns as well, so once you know how they fire their shots, you can listen for when they're about to stop firing, then get them in your sights and blast them before they start firing again. Lastly, just be patient. It can take numerous passes to defeat a single enemy sometimes, depending on what they're doing and how well you're aiming. The last thing you want to do is rush an enemy because you don't have any way of dodging their attacks if they decide to shoot you in the process. So yeah, that's Stellar 7 for y'all. It's a fun and challenging game, but pretty brief. Setting it up in DOSBox is fairly simple, except that the speed of the game is based on the speed of the computer, so the maxed auto settings won't help you. Instead, choose a fixed cycles count. Now I recommend 5,000, though you can adjust that to make the game faster or slower as desired. The game does also have joystick support, but I don't recommend you use it because of the way it handles reverse movement. If you do decide to though, you need to turn timed intervals off. One other thing. I have a CD version of this game which uses CD audio tracks for the music and cutscene voices, so if this is the version you have, then you'll definitely want to create a CD image first, generally a QBin pair, using a program that supports that file format. Then in DOSBox, you image mount the Q file using the -T ISO command line parameter. These are the steps I take for all of my CD-based DOS games, and it's generally the best way to go about it. The CD audio in this game is also kinda loud compared to the sound effects, so you'll probably want to use DOSBox's mixer command to turn it down. I recommend a setting of 55. Anyways, that's all for the 45th episode of Ancient DOS Games. Next week is a filler, and I plan to take a look at the various sound formats DOSBox supports, so make sure you tune in next Saturday if you're curious about that. Though if there's any other gaming related things you want to see me cover in future filler episodes, then make sure you send your suggestions to adg@pixelships.com.
The Earth is mine. Everything is mine. Now, to punish the Earthlings for their foolish resistance.